Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Gruesome and Grotesque video. As always, I do these videos when I come across a particular news article that merits sharing the information just exclusively here on this series. So I've done a good number of videos already. I've created a playlist for it as well if you haven't had a chance to see them. I'll include the link for it below. And my most popular video yet, the one involving John Jones, that tragic gentleman who got stuck in that cave, it remains my most viewed video of all. I mean, it's still getting so many views to this very day. So when I came across this news story a couple of weeks back, I felt I would definitely share it here, not just for the series, but also because it ties into yet another tragic claustrophobic situation involving the death of someone, in this case there in Scottsdale, Arizona. Very gruesome information. Like when I was reading it, it just definitely made me squirm when I realized essentially where this guy was stuck, and you'll see why more here in a minute. But it has to do with this. It's about a guy who was stuck there at a location called the El Dorado Aquatic Center there in Scottsdale, Arizona. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the information here, and then that way you'll be able to see exactly why I wanted to tie it here to this series. So here's how the particular story went. This actually happened a couple of weeks back. I was going to talk about it back then. However, I wanted to wait just a little bit longer to see if there was any more breaking news. But lo and behold, it looks like this is pretty much all the news that I could find, whatever had occurred a couple of weeks back. So here's what happened. Either on August 17th, maybe even the 16th, I was trying to lock in the date. But either day, one of those dates specifically, there in Scottsdale, Arizona, there's a location there called the El Dorado Aquatic and Fitness Center. When I was looking at some of the pictures, like you're looking at here, it looks just like your average water place, a water sports park. Like here in the Central Texas area, we have one that's called Schlitterbahn that is very popular, and so I imagine this is very similar to that. So on that particular night at around 12:30 a.m., police estimate there was a transient, someone that was homeless, that was able to sneak in to that water park, and he was later identified by a name. I think his name was Kelly Ryan, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check again. I'm sorry, Ryan Kelly. First name Ryan, last name Kelly. That was later identified by police. I didn't see that name originally in some of the other stories, but I did come across it afterwards. So again, it pays to be able to wait just a little bit longer to see how much more information could come about. Well, in any case, this guy Ryan was able to break into that fitness center, into that aquatic center around 12:30 a.m. and somehow, some way, he went to this particular water equipment, or water slide if you could call it, and when he was there, he just decided to climb up into this pole. I found this picture here that showcases the pole before it was taken down, and you can see how it looks like it's a very long pole. Do not let the width of that pole, like in other words the circumference of that hole, deceive you. It looks large, doesn't it? But then you'll see in some later pics that it truly is just pretty much the size or the width of an average man's chest. So he decided to break into that place, and then he snuck into that water slide, climbed up straight up into that pipe. I don't know why the pipe was necessarily left uncapped, like if it was just left open as is, but he was able to sneak in, and then that's where the tragedy occurred. Once he snuck in, he basically became 100% stuck. He crawled himself inside but was not able to get out afterward. I'm presuming, I wasn't able to find concrete information on this, but I'm presuming pretty much the only way one sneaks in is head first, right, when it comes to something like that, because the way the pipe looks and the way there's nothing really close to it surrounding it, you would have to sneak in as if you were diving in head first. He may have done so, let's say, feet first, but logistically that would have made things much more difficult. Instead, if he was pushing himself upward on that pipe, on the vertical side of that pipe, and then went over the hole, then that's where I'm presuming again that his head would have gone in first, and then that was it. He became hopelessly stuck, either by the width of his body, or maybe there was just enough space for him to just pretty much go all the way down into the pipe itself. Clearly, there was no exit when it comes to the bottom part, only the entrance at the top part, and then that's where he became stuck. And so shortly afterward, he started screaming. There were these wails that the cops there would hear. In fact, there was one patrol officer just specifically there at that aquatic center, which makes sense. These places will always have some kind of nighttime crew, either security or a real police officer, someone who's working an additional shift there, making the rounds. And then that's when he heard those particular screams. And so when he decided to call for backup to help with it, here's where another tragedy occurred. That pipe and the way it was built and the way it has the top part uncapped like that, it created an echo. So the police stated that whenever they heard that scream, they couldn't narrow it down. They couldn't find out exactly where that scream was coming from because it was essentially creating a very large echo that was bouncing across most of the park itself. And so when that happened, they had to search pretty much area by area within that center to try to find the origin of those screams, and then that's when they found it. So he called in around 12:30 a.m. and it took about an hour for the police to find and narrow it down to that specific pipe. And then, so give it about 1:30 a.m. at that point. And then for the next hour or so give it till about 2:30 a.m., they were conversing with that transient. They were conversing with Ryan to see, if they could just keep him talking, if they could just make sure that they could keep him alive in some sense, just not have him pass out, not have anything else happen to him. Tragically, though, around that 1 hour mark, that's when all of a sudden those faint calls for help stopped. Like they just completely stopped as is. I could imagine that this was the same situation involving John Jones. If he went in head first into that particular pipe, then obviously all that blood is rushing straight to his head. And so when that happened, there's only so much that you can do as far as staying in that position. And once that occurred, the head itself is getting so much blood that you're going to pass out, or something else even worse is going to happen to it. And so I think what was happening to this particular guy. Couldn't find the information as far as that, like what position again he was found in. So I'm just presuming this info, but considering that he was only able to last about an hour or so within that particular pipe, that leads me to believe that that's how he was stuck. He was stuck head first. The blood was rushing all towards his head. And then when that happened, he slowly just passed out and then passed away. And that's what the police were presuming afterward, because when they no longer heard his cries for help, then that's when they realized that at that point he was passed out. As you can see from some of these pics here too, it showcases how tight that pipe was. So there was no way that he could, let's say, squirm himself back out. It would have been impossible, even if there was enough room, let's say, for him to turn around, because of the height associated with this pipe. As you can see, the guy that's leaning over the side of the slide, his body from his shoulders to his chest pretty much makes up most of that particular pipe's circumference. So you can see clearly that if someone, and let's pretend like this transient was just a skinny guy, he could barely fit in there at that point. And let's pretend like he was more of a heavy set guy, there would have been very little chance for him to be able to escape at all. So very little chance to do so, turn around, push himself up, anything like that. Even if he was vertical, he would have to try to use his knees against his back and then try to move in some kind of coordinated efforts, pushing himself up inches at a time. That would have taken a lot of effort. Either way, though, he passed out and then he passed away within that pipe itself. The police were finally able to have the pipe removed, as you can see in some of these pictures here, but obviously it was too late at that point. He was declared dead, I think either then or on the way over to the actual hospital itself. And then that was it. That was the end of the life of this transient, this homeless guy by the name of Ryan Kelly. So many questions still associated with this particular tale, because again, if this was a pipe, and I read in one piece of it, that this was used as a structural support pipe, I didn't really see it linked to any of the other part of the slide itself. So I'm not sure exactly how that might have worked on there. Also, the question remained why the pipe was uncapped. You would think that with the popularity associated with this aquatic center, that there would be a lot of I don't know, adults, even kids that might see that pipe and then as a prank try to climb down it or do something else during the busy time, during the hours that the park itself is actually open. So again, it makes me wonder why essentially it was left uncapped as is. And then also the other question I have is, if the patrol was being done there at the center, I'm wondering how somebody was able to just sneak in as is. Like you would think that with even if with a park, like let's say being on a larger size, that there would be cameras or there'd be something else, motion sensors, something that would be able to detect if it recognizes somebody moving about the park that shouldn't be there. Either way, though, this is again a very tragic story, but pretty gruesome when you think about it, because of the fact that if he went in head first, he was there just pretty much head on the bottom of the ground, the rest of his body sticking upward within the pipe. No way to move out, no way to squirm, nothing like that. I mean, he would just pretty much be in that same position up until his death. So again, not for the claustrophobic that are out there in this YouTube viewing audience. But if anybody has any more information, anything else I might have missed, please post those comments below. I read the further and follow-up info that the park or the Aquatic Center ended up being closed for a couple of days. I'm presuming that they're back open now, but I imagine that they have so much more other stuff going on, like in terms of making sure there's nothing like that could happen again with any other part of the park itself. But if anyone knows about that part too, if you have any follow-up info like what happened afterward, then please post those comments below. All right, everybody, thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.